You're watching TelecomTV's exclusive coverage of the Wi-Fi Global Congress event from London. And I'm joined now by Dave Wright, who is Advanced Technologist with Ruckus Wireless. Dave, thanks for talking with TelecomTV.
Thank you, Guy. Pleasure to be with you.
I'd like to start, if I may, on looking at the Wi-Fi industry as a whole, and what would you say are the main challenges that this industry is facing today?
I would say actually that ironically, the challenges we're facing are also sort of bound up in our successes, actually. So if you look at some of the recent statistics from organizations like Analysis Mason or another company that I like to follow, Mobidia Analytics, they're saying that 70 to 80% of wireless data traffic from smartphones is being carried over Wi-Fi. And of course, about 100% of traffic from Wi-Fi only devices like tablets and notebook computers is obviously going over Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi is a very incredibly successful technology at this point. You look at some of the statistics from Cisco's VNI and things like that, and the data volumes going over Wi-Fi are huge. And again, just looking at the smartphone, 70 to 80% over Wi-Fi versus 20 to 30% going over the licensed networks. So there's a lot of Wi-Fi out there, and that works. It's a relatively controlled environment in the home or in the office, typically. Most offices, I should say, probably qualify that a bit. But when you talk about public and carrier Wi-Fi, there's a little less control typically of the unlicensed spectrum in public spaces. And so the more Wi-Fi is used, the more contention there can be for that unlicensed spectrum. So that's where we sometimes say that Wi-Fi is a little bit of a victim of its own success. The more stations you have trying to vie for the spectrum, the more interference there can be. So you need advanced technologies that can really cut through that contention or that interference.
I was going to say, what therefore is the answer? What does the industry need to do?
Well, we're certainly delivering solutions to the market to address that. We have a technology called BeamFlex, which is our smart antenna array technology. And basically we're optimizing the signal to the client on a per packet basis. So we track each client, and then we have algorithms that control our antenna arrays and really focus the RF energy to the client, as well as optimize the receive path from the client. So even in a relatively contentious RF environment, we can optimize the signal path. And then we also have algorithms that select the best channel to operate on. So we come on, we do an assessment of the RF environment. We say, okay, at this point in time, this is the best channel. So we set up our operation here. And then if over time the situation degrades and we're realizing, okay, if we stay here, we're only going to be able to achieve, maybe 50 megabits of throughput. If we go over here, we can actually achieve 100 megabits. We'll actually move the service set. So you really need to have some dynamic ability to adjust to the environment, because unlicensed is variable.
Now, if we're going to get these billions of extra devices coming onto our networks, the Internet of Things, sensors and actuators and what have you, a lot of these are going to be low-cost devices, I'd imagine. Yes. Low-cost components. Not necessarily all of these are going to go through certification, are they? So what then happens? Because already today, uncertified devices can cause service providers problems.
Uncertified devices certainly can cause problems, and frankly, even sometimes certified devices do, because there are different levels of certifications, and even some of the certifications don't really test every scenario that a service provider might need. So we certainly see that on the client side, with again, as you said, IoT and consumer electronic devices now being equipped with Wi-Fi. And again, really that's where on the network side, we're trying to do everything we can to optimize the signal, again, not only to the client, but also from the client. So, unfortunately, we can't necessarily assume that the clients are going to incorporate world-class chipsets, if you will. So again, we're doing what we can to make up for their issues to a certain extent. I was going to say we also see the need for better classes of technology, especially on the access point side, even in the home now, because typically the residential CPE devices for the cable modems or the DSL gateway modems, they'll integrate an access point, but again, they're really trying to optimize on cost, and those units don't really support the advanced RF capabilities that that as we move into an IoT environment where people have 20, 30 or more connected devices in the home even, that's asking a lot of a $2 chipset from the lowest bidder.
What do you make of the emergence recently of LAA and LTEU and this coexistence of licensed and unlicensed service providers?
Well, so Ruckus has been very involved with the different proposals for LTE operation in unlicensed spectrum, really since about early 2014. So the original public conversation began, I would say, in December 2013 timeframe. So 3GPP took it up in January of 2014 with a workshop, and we were present there. And so we're actively involved with the 3GPP program for LAA, which will be the standardized version of LTEU, if you will. And then we've also been involved with the IEEE and the WFA contribution. So IEEE has made a number of liaisons to 3GPP about the LAA development. And Ruckus has been involved in those conversations, as well as WFA, so the Wi-Fi Alliance now has a couple of task groups looking at LAA coexistence with Wi-Fi, and we actually chair one of those task groups. One of them is more about sort of testing and simulations, and the other one is more about the sort of definitions of what fair coexistence would mean. And so, again, we're involved there. And now WBA looks to be starting up an activity around LAA Wi-Fi coexistence, and I imagine we'll be involved there too.
Which brings me to my final question, which is the role of the WBA. What more can the WBA do to support our industry?
In terms of LTEU and LAA, or just more broadly?
Broadly.
Well, I think, even looking at the conference this year, it's great to see the WBA expanding its role a little bit. So historically, and I think the conference has been just a phenomenal success. I mean, you look at the numbers of people and the activity, and even just the energy and excitement about some of the topics as we were talking about earlier. It's encouraging to see the WBA sort of expanding its role slightly. So I mean, they're not certainly moving away from NGH and Hotspot 2.0 based, making the Wi-Fi connectivity more seamless and secure, but they're adding on to that now things like Wi-Fi calling and addressing the LTE and unlicensed proposals. We're having panelists now discussing IoT. So I think it's good that the WBA is expanding to include these other topics, and it's certainly drawing in more people who are just going to become a part of the conversation. So.
Great. Dave, thank you very much for talking with us.
Certainly. Thank you, Guy.